Hey y'all, I'm Stephanie and I'm all about that Bible life. And this video, we're digging into the topic of depression from a biblical perspective. In our previous video, we talked about how depression is a serious issue that does not have a one size fits all solution. God designed us as triune beings, designed to represent the image of God. We have physical aspects, spiritual aspects, and mental, emotional aspects of who we are. And those three aspects, those three perspectives, also affect how we deal with the topic of depression. So today, we're going to dig into just the surface level one issues that may be affecting us and causing depression. Now, before we get into this too very far, I want to let you know that when I'm sharing this information with ways that you might can address the problem of depression in your own life or how you can help others do so in their lives, I am in no way saying that depression is your fault. I'm not laying blame. I'm not saying if you would just suck it up and do better, you wouldn't be feeling this way. Absolutely not. Depression is a serious issue that causes serious problems. However, not every feeling of depression is the most serious part. And everyone's experience with depression comes from a variety of reasons and needs to be addressed from a variety of perspectives. I heard a doctor describe things like this one time where they said there are lots of illnesses out there, but when you're trying to diagnose a person's problem, you need to look for horses before you look for zebras. And what that means in reference to this topic is that before we jump to the conclusion and say, you have serious depression and you need to see a therapist and take medicine and be on guard against suicidal tendencies, that's the zebra. And even though that type of serious depression affects many people, it is not the first place we need to go in order to address the problem. We might get there. And as you can see, as we go through, we're going to talk about level one, surface issues, then level two, more serious issues, and then level three, which is the core, the center, not the goal, but the root problem. If it's still there after handling all these other things, there might still be that zebra right in the middle where therapy, doctors, physical prescription interventions, and all of those things come into play. But before we hone in on the most serious possible aspect of depression, let's zoom out just a little bit. Let's see if there are some things that we can integrate in our own life that we can recognize maybe some of my depression is coming from this level one surface type issues. All right. So this is not to place blame on someone, but rather to give you steps to take to address the depressive feelings, the depression in your own life or in the lives of those that you love. So, whenever you are experiencing feelings of depression, so let's look at physical level one. Level one physical, you should ask the question, what time of the month is it? Now that's not to throw off on women and hormones and all of those things, but it is a real issue. I raised two daughters and I grew up with two sisters, and I remember it being a frequent question in our household, what time of the month is this for you? Because if you wake up one day and you feel as though your life is falling apart and you are fat and you are miserable and you have no friends and everything is going wrong and all you do is feel like crying, there might be some very serious issues at play here. But also, can we possibly suggest that there might be some less serious issues at play? And some of that could be PMS. And it's amazing what a relief it is if you look at the calendar and recognize, oh my goodness, I'm feeling miserable, but I feel miserable every month on this day. And it's okay. It's probably just PMS. I will have a bar of chocolate and I will sit on a heating pad and I will take it easy and I will give myself a break and I will not stress over how I'm feeling. And if I'm still feeling this way in a few days, then I will address it. But let's try to just hit the most easy perspectives first. Am I PMSing? Have I been getting enough sleep? If you're not sleeping well, you are going to feel bad. Am I taking care of my body or am I eating lots of junk food? Am I just laying around on the couch with the curtains closed? Or maybe I should get up and walk around outside and experience the sunshine. You see, they even call it SAD, the seasonal affective disorder, that people experience depression during winter months because it's darker and they're outside less. And seasonal affective disorder, the solution is part of it, go outside. Open up the curtains and stand in the sunshine if it's too cold to be outside. But getting some vitamin D, it's not it's not making light of the problem. It's just recognizing that sometimes the easiest solutions are the best ones, or at least it's a good start in the right direction. So, physical level one, time of the month, your sleep habits, your eating habits. If you've been eating lots of sugar, studies are showing that processed foods, refined sugar, high levels of those types of dyes and artificial things in your body, some people are affected by that in their moods and they feel depressed whenever they've had excessive amounts of sugar or other processed foods. It might be something to recognize. If you're feeling depressed and you want to look at level one on the physical side of some potential causes, you might could recognize, wow, I've been eating a lot of junk lately. Maybe I should clean up my diet a little bit and see how that goes. Eating more whole foods or getting outside and walking around in the sun, opening up the curtains, being more active and not just sedentary. All of those things contribute to our mood. Caffeine, processed foods, and all of those things can cause changes in our moods. So, why not? Why not look at level one first and see if there are some things in level one physical that you can address? Level one in the mental emotional side looks something like, how much time am I spending on social media? How much time am I spending watching the news? Our mental emotional side really is reflective of what we put in, not just in our bodies like the physical side, but what we take into our mind. What are we listening to? What are we watching? I serve as a chaplain, and one of the places where I served temporarily was at an assisted living facility. And the people there, the residents there, tend toward very serious bouts of depression, and for good reason. They've lost loved ones, they've lost their freedom and their way of life, they feel lonely and isolated, they're struggling with health problems and end of life issues. So there's a lot of valid reasons that they are depressed. However, one of the things that I also noticed that could be contributing to that was the fact that every room had a television and every public space had a big screen TV, and all of them were always tuned to the news. And the news is never really a source of encouragement or uplifting, hopeful stories. It's more about the drama and the fear and the anxiousness in the hard things that are going on in our world. So if you find yourself feeling depressed, start evaluating, what are you putting into your mind and heart? Are you constantly watching the news? Maybe turn that off and see if that affects your mood. Are you constantly on social media looking at all the wonderful lives that other people have and you find yourself feeling depressed or anxious because yours is not that good? Maybe turn that off for a little while. I knew a single lady who struggled, who most of the year did not struggle with being single, but in February, it became a struggle. It became a source of anger and frustration and resentment and bitterness because it was Valentine's Day. And on social media, everyone's posting about what their husbands or their boyfriends gave them, and flowers and jewelry and chocolate and fancy dates and all these things. And so she just made it a point that during the month of February, she didn't get on social media because she didn't want to allow that sort of discontentment to be in her life. So those sort of level one, easy fix coping skills, we can put those into practice for our mental and emotional well-being. We can eliminate those negative influences. It might even be an external influence like negative people and friends. If you find yourself always depressed after you've hung out with a certain group of people, that might be something to evaluate. And sometimes you can't get get those people out of your life because maybe they're coworkers or family members and you live with them or you work with them and you can't change that. But if you recognize that your depression or the feelings of depression and discontentment with your life are not coming because your life is horrible, but they're coming because this external influence, then maybe you can put some boundaries in place to protect your heart and mind from that level of discontentment. So, level one, mental and emotional, has a lot to do with external influences and how they affect your thoughts and your feelings. And let's look at level one for the spiritual side. We need to ask ourselves the question, am I right with God? It's a valid question because no amount of positive thinking and no amount of healthy food and diet and exercise are going to overcome the problems that sin causes in our life. Without God, there's no real true source of peace. And I know that's not a popular thing to hear today because people want to relegate God to religion. And religion is a Sunday thing or a personal thing or a faith thing. But the Bible says that God wants us to have an abundant life, not riches, health, wealth, and happiness, but an abundant life, abundant with joy, abundant with peace, abundant of patience and kindness and goodness. And all of that comes from Him. So, level one, the first thing you have to ask yourself when dealing with the spiritual aspect of depression is, am I right with God? Or am I actively living in rebellion to Him? Has He told me to do something and I'm saying no? Has He told me to stop doing something and I'm saying, you can't tell me what to do? Our spiritual life does affect more than just the religious side of things. Living right with God gives us a firm foundation on which to build a life that's pleasing to the Lord and that is good for us. Those who trust in the Lord will lack no good thing, is what the psalmist tells us. And we can hold on to that. So even when we do a lot of other things right, if we're not right with God, it's not going to change much. But just calling it a sin issue is not the only thing. Remember, we talked about how we don't want to just slap a pill on it. It's not just a physical issue. We don't want to just quote a positive mantra looking in the mirror and saying, you're good enough, you're smart enough, and doggone it, people like you. Like, that's not how it's going to fix everything. Just the same way saying you need to get right with God is not the only way to fix depression, but without being right with God, you can't experience true and lasting joy and peace. So, level one on the spiritual side, am I right with God? And am I regularly making God part of my life? If you are a follower of Jesus Christ and you're not actively living in sin, like where He has told you to do something and you're not doing it, then you also need to ask yourself, what about my spiritual life? Am I feeding my soul? Am I pouring into my relationship with Jesus? Or is this just something I'm tacking on to the end of my life? Like, oh, yeah, I guess I also need to, have a relationship with God. But you can look at your spiritual life and see, am I feeding this? Am I pouring into my spiritual life? And do I have a healthy spiritual life? Just like we look at level one, do I have a healthy physical practices? Level one, mental and emotional. Do I have healthy influences on my mental and emotional state? On the spiritual side, we look and say, do I have a healthy spiritual life? Am I regularly reading my Bible? Am I praying? Am I finding time to worship? Am I meeting together with believers, going to church, or learning from one another and having that connection like God calls us to? It's through regular practices, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, that brings us into health. Now, this is just level one, like I said. So we start here. But if you've worked through these things and you find yourself still struggling with depression, Don't worry, there's a level 2 and a level 3. So tune into the next one and we will talk more about depression from a biblical perspective.